Welcome to the HVAC Guide live show. We're coming to you live from Houston, Texas. If you've never watched my show before, I usually, hold on, my computer is being crazy here. It all of a sudden started doing closed captioning so I could read what I was saying. Normally I'm coming to you live from Virginia, but I am on a trip. I'm at a class at Daikin, which is one of the sponsors of our show. As some of you know, I now teach other HVAC professionals different things, how to do different things, and this. So I'm basically attending a class for that at Daikin. So coming to you live from Houston, Texas. If you are with us, feel free to drop a hello in the chat if you have any HVAC questions. Love to answer those for you. Emery says, will you be visiting the Daikin plant there? So my class is actually at the plant, which is kind of cool. Bringing up some old memories from last year's videos that we did. And I actually have a video that shows more behind the scenes. I call it the Daikin heart video because it's got some heart-filled moments. And so we've had that video. We basically are waiting for approval just to make sure everybody's okay, that, you know, passes all the checks and balances before we launch that video. And so that one should be coming out soon. Sorry for the camera tonight. My normal camera is just not connecting to this computer for some reason. Every time Google does an update on Chrome, I have issues with StreamYard, which is the service that I use for the show here. So it's kind of frustrating, but just trying to make the best of it. So I'm actually using the camera on the computer, which actually doesn't look as bad as I feel like some cameras do. So it seems to be, it's not as crisp, but it seems to be coming out okay. So yeah, so we're at the Daikin plant. Let's do this before we get diving into tonight's show. I've got a crazy story. If you saw the title of tonight's show, but before we dive into all of that, let's take a moment to pay the bills and thank the sponsor of tonight's show.
I want to thank the sponsor of tonight's show, EasyFit Isolator Valves. I've seen a lot of products in my years of doing HVAC and plumbing, but I haven't seen many where I've said every HVAC and plumbing service vehicle should have one of those. The EasyFit Isolator Valve is one of those products. I personally think so many jobs in my past, having one of these would have made my and my customers' lives so much better. This valve can allow for easy installation without shutting off the main water shutoff, making so many applications possible. The homeowner or business owner stays operational while the HVAC mechanic or plumber looks like the hero. I'll put a link in the description of this video or the chat. Get yourself one today to have on hand for that emergency we all know will come.
I actually saw a crazy video this week of, let me see if I can find it. Just this crazy video of this guy cutting loose a, yeah, here it is, a pipe in this lady's hotel room. And let me show you guys this. This poor guy, he cut a pipe. I think he was trying to make a repair. And share this. So the video is called When You Lie on Your Resume. And as you can see, this, is it not going to play again? It's going to be one of those shows, guys. It's just not going to, let me see if I can refresh it here. There it goes. So I don't know if you guys can see that, but he's got water pouring. Let me remove my fat face for a second. So anyway, I don't know if you guys could see that, but he's got water pouring there. And then I saw this other video. Let's see if I can get this one to play. Share this tab. All right, so here's this guy. Let me play that one more time. Bear with me. So I like how this guy kind of almost smiles at the camera, like, yep, getting the job done kind of deal. And he is, in his defense, we've all been there. But I saw both of those videos and I thought about our sponsor of tonight's show. I thought if they had an EasyFit isolator valve, they would not be having water pour into people's apartment or homes or hotel rooms. All they would need is that valve. So anyway, crazy videos. Let's jump to tonight's news story. And this is what our show was titled this week. Let me see. Bear with me here. Let's make sure I'm on the right story here. Massachusetts commercial services. Okay. All right. Just make sure I'm on the right story. A Massachusetts HVAC company was having difficulty hiring workers, so they teamed up with a trade school. So a pretty cool story. I'm not sure where this, I'm probably not even going to say this right. Bill Erica. It sort of looks, it keeps throwing me off because it looks like America, but then it's got Bill at the front. So Bill Erica, that's how I'm going to say it. So I don't know where that is in Massachusetts. I don't know if it's close to Boston or somewhere else, but it says a Massachusetts commercial services and construction company having a hard time finding workers is taking matters into their own hands, teaming up with a trade school to train students themselves. Quote, in the construction industry, we have over 650,000 open positions, and the service industry is very similarly staffed, Medford Wellington Service Company CEO Mike Lacrosse said. Medford Wellington Service Company is one of many across the country struggling to find skilled trade workers. Really what's happening is hurting our customers, Lacrosse said. And I could say, as a former business owner that just got out of the game, not even a year ago, I sold my company. That was my biggest challenge, period. Finding good help was definitely, hands down, the biggest challenge I had as a business owner. The HVAC company out of Billerica, let me know if you know if I'm saying that correctly. I'm probably not. Has been in business for over 50 years. Now they're getting creative to find employees, opening a trade school right on their property to hopefully solve the shortage problem. Quote, if they're able to take what we learn in the classroom and put it in the field once they get out there independently, that's the best thing to see as a teacher, instructor Jake Ingram said. Ingram will be one of several teachers taking students through trade courses in the new classrooms and workshops. So this company's getting creative. They're partnering with a trade school. This is not uncommon. I have seen companies local to where I am do very similar programs, maybe supporting the school in some way. Sometimes you got to get creative. I'll tell you this. And this is going to sound harsh, but it's true because I have experienced it. Most of the I shouldn't say most, some of the trade schools and the teachers that are teaching the classes have no motivation to help those students get jobs. And I can tell you that with all confidence because I experienced that. I was a business owner who approached teachers. I made donations to the school. I never was allowed to, but I was willing to donate equipment for the classes and do all kinds of things. And there could have been a number of reasons for that, but whatever the reason was, the teacher definitely had no motivation to return my phone calls in some cases. And so I don't know. I'm not saying a teacher's compensation should be directly affected by whether or not they get students a job or not and how good they are at that job. But what if it was? What if they're, and I'm saying compensate them very well. How can we figure this out to that's, I mean, if you want to talk about fixing the labor shortage problem in the trades, that I think would do it. If you incentivize teachers, pay them very well, but their compensation be directly affected, linked, if you will, to whether or not they're able to make the students really good at the job and get them, connect them with companies and get them jobs. I feel like my experience would have been different. I can say that. I'm not trying to be too unharsh. I know there's exceptions to every rule. I know there's some great teachers out there. Some of them have their heart in the right place and all those things. But looking back on it, maybe, just maybe, the teacher saw me as a competitor. If he owned his own heating and air business and he was, taking the students and taking the better ones, but if he's only going to hire one or two of them, wouldn't you think he would at least throw the rest or even bad students in my direction? My experience was, and I approached I approached the high school's trade program that they would send students to. I approached the at least two different night class, adult classes for students. So as you can tell, this is something that I am passionate about. It's one of the reasons I selected this story for tonight's show, because I don't know if you saw last week's show. I do want to apologize. I probably got my feelings a little bit too much last week, and our guest wasn't able to make it, and the numbers were just low on the show, and I just went ahead and called it early. So I'm sorry for that if any of you felt like you missed out on that. I know some of you join us every week, and I do appreciate all the support you give us. That said, back to our news story, I just think that it's great that the different companies are supporting the industry the way they have to. You got to get creative. And obviously this company knows that. The first 300 students will start classes this month. If you're somebody who likes to solve problems, likes to learn new skills, the trade is definitely something to get into. I think that might have meant the trades, maybe. I don't know. Ingram said, to make it all happen, Medford Wellington teamed up with Gold Construction Institute. Their partnership means the school can offer multiple trades from HVAC to electric and carpentry. We have 6 classrooms and a big shop space. We're really excited about the future here, said Stephen Sullivan, Director of Workforce Development for Associated Builders and Contractors, Massachusetts. I'll tell you another thing I just want to throw out there. I was talking to somebody about this not long ago. I think, first of all, we're seeing a big shift in the trades on an education standpoint. We're seeing more and more companies get into the game of interactive digital learning, if you will. There are companies coming out with apps making it easier to learn the trade, video programs, interactive virtual reality type programs. And those are all, like, it's great. I mean, that's the only word I can give it. It's great that that's happening. But I do think that trade schools like this and companies like this and companies like the ones that are figuring out ways to get students hands-on, real world training, that's going to become a big craving for a lot of these students, because that's what, let's be honest, that's what they're missing with some of these programs. Again, those programs, I'll just say it again because everybody always likes to get, all in a huffy. I think those programs are great. I'm so happy to see there are newer ways for folks to get educated. There's YouTube channels and podcasts and, of course, these apps and all the virtual reality and all the different ways that we're seeing. If you want to learn our trade, you have no excuses to learn it, right? In fact, I would even argue that a large majority of what I now know, I've learned in some way, form, or fashion because of the internet, because of computers or apps or videos, right? That said, I do think that these companies that are getting creative with having students in a classroom and having real world hands-on experience is going to become a large craving for a lot of these folks that are wanting to learn this industry. They're going to crave that sort of interaction and hands-on experience. Let's see, how much more of the story do we have? Okay, great. We're almost done here. Sullivan told WBZ-TV the students will be able to get their certifications and have job opportunities with one of their hundreds of companies. So they have hundreds of companies. They've got a lot of resources, it sounds like. We're scrapping to get people to think about how valuable it is to come into this industry and make a family wage right now, Sullivan said. That means one person can work and support the family. With inflation at about 3% and a lack of workers, and I think these numbers, these inflation numbers, I'm not trying to get political. I just think these inflation numbers, that when they'll say 3, 6, 7, 8%, I think that, I mean, for me personally, groceries are not 3% higher than they used to be. They're way higher, right? Gas prices are not 6% higher than they used to be. They're extremely higher. Rent and mortgages for people today, it's not 3 or 5 or 7%. Like I hear these different news articles or organizations say. That's not me being political. That's me being honest. Just a few years ago, my money got me a lot further than it does now. And so anyway, with inflation, I don't even know why I went down that rabbit hole. It just always annoys me when they break it's only 3% inflation. Stop it. With inflation at 3% and a lack of workers, Lacrosse said he's seeing a direct impact on the customer. If you think about your home, how quickly would it take for a technician to get to your house to fix it? Well, it's taking weeks right now. So we need more technicians in the field to serve our customers long term, he said. He hopes the new school can help change that, better the industry as a whole. So if you just happen to catch this and you want to check these folks out, if you happen to be in the Northeast, I'm not being paid by these guys. I just think that they're doing something good. If you go to medfordwellington.com/careers, that's for their job opportunities. It looks like there's a few other websites you can go to, and they're listed right there in case you want to check out the school. Oh, here we go. The school. Okay, sorry. So the school is gwgci.org. So check that out. So anyway, what do you guys think? I mean, I think that it's good. I mean, I'm not saying it's the perfect. Oh, I'm sharing the wrong screen here. I'm not saying it's the most perfect program or anything like that. I just think that it's time for folks to get creative, and I think it's great that they're trying. Sam says, I have 3 degrees. First of all, welcome to the show, Sam. I have 3 degrees in engineering. I just purchased an old school engineering textbook. I am now working the problems. I am using a slide rule. That's great. I mean, in a world where everybody says, well, I have an app for that, right? Isn't that what everybody says? Sometimes going old school and you're definitely ahead of the game if you do get into that old school thinking and, crack open that old textbook and some of that good stuff. What are the symptoms of a faulty TXV valve in HVAC? What are the symptoms? Well, so a valve a TXV is just a valve, right? So it opens and closes, and based on the superheat measurement that it's seeing, it will open or close a little bit, right? So there's a lot of in between there, right? So it might open just a little bit. It might open halfway. It might open a little bit more. If it's saying, hey, I need more refrigerant here. I need to make this coil colder or warmer or whatever. And so Faulty valves would be doing the opposite of that, right? So I've actually seen guys take a cup of ice water and dip the temperature sensing bulb of a TXV in a cup of ice water to get it to close, right? Because if it sees warm, it wants to open. If it sees cold, it wants to close. And so I've seen guys do that to almost kind of free that TXV up. And if they get it free, moving in the right direction, then there's some products on the market that you can add to that system. And I've seen it work. I've seen guys add some of those products that, like AC Renew, for example, like a lubrication, and it actually get in there and that TXV start operating better again. But obviously other symptoms might be just simply a restriction. If that valve's supposed to be open all the way or open more than it is, and it's not, and there's different ways to test that to see if that basically the symptoms that it would be giving you, such as if your refrigerant levels are thrown off because that valve's not opening or closing like it should. I might be wrong on this, but I feel like most valves that are diagnosed correctly are either closed or causing some sort of a restriction. I could get myself in trouble in that because there might be some pros that might disagree. So if you are a pro and you disagree with that, please let me know. I feel like most valves that are diagnosed as bad or faulty is probably a better word, Emery. It's usually because they're restricting the refrigerant more than it should be. It's rare. I'm not saying it never happens. I've seen it happen, especially with a flooding evaporator coil. You just can't seem to get your pressures balanced correctly, and you've got a valve that's just not opening and closing like it should, and it's staying open. That's usually, that's less as common. I'm not saying it's less common overall, which I don't know, maybe I am, but I'm saying when I see valves that are diagnosed as bad and replaced, then it's usually because that valve is just not opening as much as it should, and it's causing a restriction of sorts. I see valves misdiagnosed a lot just simply because the refrigerant may be a little low. Now you might say, well, why is the refrigerant low? Do we have a leak? Well, yeah, maybe. But I had a system not long ago where the guy was like, oh, bad TXV, my pressures are off. And I said, okay, well, did you try, testing it at all? There's a number of ways you can test that, and I've heard guys argue over what those ways are. But I can tell you this: if I do add a little refrigerant, so a valve that's starving for refrigerant and opening more than it should, and trying to allow refrigerant through, will throw your pressures off. If it's starving for refrigerant because refrigerant's low, it may give you symptoms that may make you think the valve is bad. I've seen it happen. And so, that there's a number of reasons of, we could get into all the ins and outs of that, but I have seen that happen. Sam says, as an aside, I now own 5 slide rules. Almost one for every day of the week, sir. Very cool. So, let's see. So we shared a couple crazy clips with you guys. We also shared a crazy story. Let's move on to asking you guys tonight's question. Let me pull up. Bear with me. Got to go to a different screen here. Bear with me. I can tell you guys are getting antsy. So I want to show you guys this, because one thing we started doing on our main channel, so right now, if you're watching this, you're on our live show channel, and one thing we started doing is we started asking questions poll questions on our main channel, on our HVAC Guide for Homeowners YouTube channel. And I wanted to point out a couple polls that we've ran recently. Some of these I think are a little interesting. Some of them we have been surprised. I have personally been surprised by the answers. And so this just 2 days ago, we posted overall, how satisfied are you with your HVAC system or systems in your home, and why? And the thing that probably jumps out at me the most here is more people said that they are satisfied or extremely satisfied than any other answers. And that's a good thing, right? That means you spent hard-earned money on a heating and air system, and now you are either satisfied or extremely satisfied with that purchase. And so that, let's see, 19 plus 45 is 64%, I think, if I'm doing my math correctly on that. And so 64% of folks that answered said that they are either satisfied or extremely satisfied. So that's great. It's not great for me because it means I don't get to do as many YouTube videos. Just kidding. That is the first thing though. I had to laugh when I saw that. I said, man, this satisfaction is going to put little old me out of a content creator business. But again, I'm trying to be funny with that. I think that's great. I think that, again, if you're spending that kind of money that a lot of you folks spend, that you are satisfied, and that's great. 23% said that they are neutral. So they're not satisfied, but they're not necessarily dissatisfied. They're just, I would almost say they're not excited about it. They're not excited in one direction or the other if they're in the neutral category. Let's see. My computer keeps shifting over. Let's see. Sam says, I had my Daikin Fit system in 2020. I'd like to do my grounded meditation before the side discharge compressor fan. So it sounds like Sam might be satisfied. 4% of folks, so out of, let's just imagine that we had 100 people answer, which we didn't. We had, it looks like 83 people answered this poll. But let's just say 100 answered it, so just a few more. That would have meant that 4 out of all those 100 people were just dissatisfied with their heating and air system. And then finally, 10% of folks said they were extremely dissatisfied. Let me see what the comments were on that. Tommy O8967 says botched installation and pig-headed contractor covered up the mistakes. Warranty headaches ensued. So I'm not sure what which one he said, whether he was just dissatisfied or extremely dissatisfied. And so I'm going to leave him a little comment there. Oh no, so sorry to hear. Please tell us the details. So you guys can watch and see if he comes back and responds to that. If you follow our YouTube channel, HVAC Guide for Homeowners, make sure you're subscribed there. And of course, make sure you're subscribed to our HVAC Guide live show channel. But let's see if Tommy gives us some more details on that. I'd love to know what was botched. You know, he says botched installation. Actually, I'm going to throw one more reply in there and say, join us every Tuesday, like you guys are, Tuesday night for our live show on the HVAC Guide live Show channel. So, yeah, I'd love to hear a little more about that. Kenneth Johnson wrote, because I do all the preventative maintenance. So I'm assuming he's saying I am satisfied because I do all my own preventative maintenance. So I'm going to say awesome. Join us. And we're going to do a little plug for tonight's show, so maybe Kenneth can get on here. Kenneth, if you're here, do tell. But in case you're not, I'm going to say that to your comment. And then finally, excuse me. I tell you, I'm down here in Texas, and I don't think I have a cold, but I do have a scratchy throat. And so I've been pounding some vitamin C just in case. And so it hasn't developed into a full-blown cold, but I might be coughing in your ear a few times tonight, guys. Let's see. Emery says, what are your thoughts on home warranty companies? Emery, I did a whole video on that, and I made no friends. I think that I can't speak for every one of them because I haven't worked with every one of them. And I'm sure there are exceptions to every rule, but I can tell you that some of them give homeowners, I did a whole video on it, you got to watch it. But some of them give homeowners a false expectation of thinking that they have, this great warranty, and if anything goes wrong, they're going to take good care of them. And that's just not always the case. And I'll just leave it at that. Again, I know there's exceptions to every rule. And if you know of one and you're excited about the warranty company that you use, that's great. I can just tell you that if you do feel that way about your warranty company, that you might be in the minority on that. Ryan says, I wish my HVAC was more efficient, but I like that it's simple, cheaper to maintain or repair since it's not an inverter system. I tell you, I've been getting some feedback on that, and I've even had some contractors say to me that, until they find better help and until they find guys that are going to learn this trade, that, it makes them nervous sometimes to install higher end systems if they're going to have an issue or two and they just don't know how to fix it or something like that. And so I think that will get better as time goes on, especially as we see more and more inverter systems out there. They will become easier to maintain. Right now, it's simply an education thing. A lot of technicians will say, well, I don't like tech support, and I always have to call tech support for inverter systems. Well, why are you having to call tech support, Well, I just don't know. I don't know them as well. Well, I think, and I hope that will get better. I refuse to lay down and believe that Europe and Asia can get a better grasp, and Australia can get a better grasp on these inverters and ductless systems than we can here in the States. And right now they do. They have more technicians that are better skilled at working with higher end systems for a number of reasons. Part of that is, if you've never laid hands on some of these systems and there is an education curve to it versus those guys are seeing it every day, well, that is part of it, right? But the other part of that is some of these jokers in our trade need to get with it. It's time. If you don't want to install them, fine. But you do need to at least be learning how to work on them because they're here. And, if we were having this conversation 10 or 20 years ago, fine, that it might have been different. But these days, we're seeing more and more of them put in. We're seeing more and more companies come out with new technologies. We're now seeing communicating inverters left and right. We're seeing these new budget-friendly side discharge units. Daikin is one of the sponsors on our show, and they make the Daikin Fit. And guys just need to get with it, man. They're better. They're more efficient. They just need to get with it. Emery says, if I have an HVAC system more than 10 years old, should I replace or repair it? Well, that's a loaded question. In fact, Emery, I'm actually glad you asked that question, because we are currently working. So you're going to get to hear a little, what my old boss used to say, you're going to get to hear how the hot dogs are made for a moment and hear a little behind the scenes. We are currently working on an entire series of videos on repair versus replace. And we have a video that should be launching very, very soon. It's got a lot of things that I had to get approval on, and we're just waiting for that. I'll just put it that way. It's a long story, but the short version is it should be coming out soon, and the premise of that video is repair versus replace. The age of the system is part of that. I think there are an array of things that play into that decision. It used to be, a few years ago, the decision was just sit down and do some math. And the math was, if I'm going to repair this system, it's 10 years old, and the math was, does the math make sense for me to put whatever that investment of that repair is into this system? And, you either decided whether it was or was not a good decision. Today, I think it's more complicated. I think that yes, that's still part of the decision, but now that we're moving in this direction of A2L refrigerants, and we're seeing 410A systems that are going to get phased down, and if you do have another issue within a year or two, the repair is going to get higher and higher, because the refrigerant may become, and I say may, because I'm not a psychic, but I think it's safe to say that if they're going to phase it down, it's going to get more scarce at some point. So it may become more scarce. It may become higher in price. And if that happens, then do you make the decision today? I don't know. There's more to it than it used to be on that decision. Ryan says, people in my area say it's the parts, and that they don't carry the proprietary parts for inverter systems in their vans, so it's a little delay in repairs. My next system will be an inverter. That's a good point. Parts availability should play a role in what you go with and what you decide. And that kind of goes back to on the manufacturers and the companies themselves, right? They need to make sure that they're doing a good job of making sure that parts are available. But we're supposed to be doing a class at the company I work for now soon. I talked to a guy from Gentech, which Gentech makes a lot of the motors that are installed today. And due to the ability to program some of those motors, they're making it the way it used. I shouldn't say the way it used to be, because the way it used to be, I could carry 4 motors on my truck and get any system, single stage system, 2-stage 2, but single stage system operating in the middle of the night. I kept 4 motors on my truck. I kept a 120 volt and a 240 volt indoor motor, and I kept an outdoor motor that was 825 RPMs and one that was 1075 RPMs. And with those 4 motors, I could get just about anybody going in the middle of the night with those motors, those rescue motors. Today, with with variable speed and ECM motors and all the different types of constant torque, and we're just seeing an array of motors. So anyway, I was talking to this guy from Gentech, and he was saying, we're making it to where you really only need a couple motors now. You're only going to have to carry just a handful, less than a handful of motors, maybe 2 or 3, and based on the programming of that motor, get us back to the point where you can get folks going again in the middle of the night. And so I'm excited. Haven't talked to him in a few weeks because of some other things going on, and just trying to get things caught up, but I am looking forward to that class. I'm hoping to touch base with him very soon. Let me see if I can get this other camera to work. Is it? Nope, still not going to work. Sam says, when I purchased my system, Daikin only had 2 communicating systems. Now they have 6 fit systems available. Interesting. That must have been a long time ago, because I can tell you that my company, we were a DCP for a number of years, and they've always had, so they had their furnace, they have a lot of furnaces that can be either or. They can be communicating or non-communicating, and of course they got the fit, they've got it used to be the DZ18 VC, which was variable speed inverter communicating, and then they had the 2-stage 18 that was also had the ability, I think, to communicate. I might be wrong on that. I might have been just straight. I think that was still non-communicating. But anyway, and then they had the 20 SEER. Of course, now that's all like DZ9. And of course, now that R32 stuff's coming out, it's going to be DH9, which is their heat pump that's high SEER. But anyway, yeah, that's interesting. Ryan says, I'm debating between communicating and non-communicating. I like the software of the Nest and Ecobee, but I understand why manufacturers have their own T-stats, but they have to improve the software. I'll tell you this, Ryan, I have a prediction that a lot of these main manufacturers that don't currently offer a non-communicating inverter system, as the government continues to raise SEER ratings, I wonder if some of those companies will finally start coming out with non-communicating inverter systems as well. We will see, but we're already seeing a number of companies start to get into that game. It used to be just 1 or 2 in that game, and now we're seeing, sorry, my microphone's being crazy here. But now we're seeing even more folks get into that game, and I think just a little bit of time is going to go by, and we're going to see more folks getting into that game. Some of the big manufacturers that we all know are going to come out with systems in that that category, I guess would be the best word for it. I also love my Daikin home app. Man, they've come a long way, haven't they? They do updates, and they just keep coming out with more and more cool things. They are a sponsor on our show, so I am biased. I've gotten away from just saying I might be a little biased. No, I am biased. We sold Daikin at my company, and they're the only manufacturer. I had other manufacturers that wanted to talk, but they're their only company that I approached myself when I started making our YouTube channel, started getting some traction, and we were ready to have a sponsor or two. And I have a friend that he does YouTube videos on like protection and stuff, and we talked about like moving, approaching a few companies, talking about sponsorship, and almost kind of working your way up to your dream sponsor. And I just out the gate approached my dream sponsor, which was Daikin. I was already talking about them constantly in my YouTube videos anyway, because that's what we sold at my company. So anyway, I'm with you on that, pal. Ryan says, I have to use the Comfort Control app for my system out of the box. Comfort Control. What brand is that, Ryan? I'm drawing a blank. It's hard to keep track of all of them. There's so many. Let's see. We're doing pretty good on time. Let me see if just start singing to you guys, and then all of a sudden everybody sign off. Let's see. Let me go back to where is the I never did jump back to the chat, did I? Let me read this last comment on that poll. JW77019 says, I know how it works and how to get it to do what I want it to do, which is keep me cool and between 40 to 45% humidity. Most people in Houston have no, so he must be in Houston, which is where I am right now during this recording. It's not home. I'm here for a class if you weren't here at the beginning of the show. Most people in Houston have no understanding about HVAC other than it blows cold air. Most houses are way too humid and have the thermostats set too low because they have various complicated problems due to inadequate humidity control and fear of high electric bills. No matter how nice a house is, I can always tell when it cycles on and off. According to my father, a nice house doesn't have an air rushing sound or a garage facing the street. I've heard that too. Although that seems to be becoming more common again. There should be an effort to inform people how it works and that all the cycling every 5 minutes is not helping their power bill. I believe if I had a dream house, the ductwork would be for a super powerful dehumidification system only, and all the AC would be ductless with ceiling units throughout and small rooms, bathrooms, pantry, etc., sharing a few half-ton mini-split ducts. The filtration would be handled by the dehumidification air handler. It's funny you say that, JW, because I almost think that is the direction we will eventually get to anyway, right? I mean, if you go outside of our continent, you see nothing but ductless mini splits. The comfort and the zoning and the dehumidification and all of that is significantly higher and better. Electric bills and the quietness of the units, I mean, let's just be honest, they are better, right? But where they do fall short are the things you're talking about, which is if they're installed correctly and they're being used correctly, they should still dehumidify really well. But installing a system that maybe has the ability to dehumidify better, right? If you're adding ductwork just for dehumidification, and then also, like you said, the filtration, the indoor air quality side of things. That's sometimes where those ductless systems do seem to fall a little short. So back to our chat here. Brian says, do you think manufacturers should include things like line voltage monitoring and surge protection in the unit for inverter systems? It seems like that's why they fail mostly. That's a great question, Ryan. I bet if one of them figures out how to do it in a budget-friendly manner, they'll all follow suit. Right now, none of them do it. They all almost, I don't want to say they require it, but they kind of require it, right? They have to have some sort of surge protection, and the manufacturers are going to tell you as such. So as soon as, I think I know who is going to figure it out, but I won't say who. But I think once a company does figure out how to do that in a budget-friendly way to not just have surge protection, but it'd be great if they could have phase monitors, have a way to break power if there's a problem, if there's dirty voltage that's too high or too low, brownout protection, and of course surge protection. If they figure that out and can do that in a way that the system is still budget friendly, and also, and not just budget friendly, but also easy to work on, because as soon as you add another component, we see guys in our trade that are already fighting simple things like an inverter system, for example, and they, no matter how amazing they are and how great they are for the customer, you'll still hear heating and air guys say, oh, well, I don't think that they're good for this reason or that reason, right? I think those days are getting closer to an end. Guys are starting to warm up, to them more. But, we still have some ground to cover on that. Ryan says it's the Daikin app for their systems called Comfort Control. Oh, okay. Interesting. The app that I use is the Daikin Home. I think it's the Daikin One Home or something like that. So I just Didn't know. Let's see. Sam says I have a DM96VC furnace and the CAPE48 air handler. I also have a Rinnai tankless water heater furnace. Interesting. My system dehumidifies nicely. Good stuff. Seems more expensive to keep replacing inverter boards. Well, I tell you, the other thing is replacing. If you do have to replace an inverter board, is a lot of guys. It's not just the surge protection side of things, but a lot of these boards have thermal grease. They have to have thermal grease on the board, or it will not shed. Is that the right word? Shed the heat or dissipate that heat from the board correctly. And so we'll see guys put new boards in only to have it burn right up, the brand new board burn up, because it was not installed correctly with the proper thermal grease in there. Sam says having upstairs and downstairs carbon monoxide detectors. Good for you, pal. I have not confirmed with her, but next week we should have a expert on carbon monoxide on our show. So do not miss next week. She is a hoot. A hoot as in she is a lot of fun. She and I have done some trainings together, and I have not confirmed with her yet. I'm going to right after tonight's show, but if she's still good for tonight's show, next week's show, she will be a hoot. And don't miss next week. If you don't miss any other show, make sure you're here next week. Louise is a hoot. Ryan says, why do HVAC guys say aluminum coils leak more than copper coils? Is aluminum more efficient as to why the manufacturer switched? I've heard an array of reasons why guys why these companies switch to aluminum coils. I think the main reason is cost, but I think there's a couple other reasons as well. I've heard people argue the efficiency of different coils. Some will say so copper is better heat transfer, but I think aluminum is better at something else. I can't remember, to be honest with you. I've never really cared, because if I met somebody that did care, we just tried to accommodate. But maybe that's something that I'll look into for you guys, and maybe even do a video on it, on which one is better from that standpoint. Again, I know that different people, I think it's almost been kind of like an opinion thing more than a fact thing for some of these folks when it comes to which one is better. Because I've heard folks on both sides talk about things like dirty sock syndrome and all kinds of stuff. And even the folks that argue that aluminum coils are harder to repair, most of those guys aren't repairing the copper ones anyway. They're still swapping the evaporator coil if there's a problem with it. So it seems like a silly argument anyway. Sam says, I am now doing a static problem. I have never had inverter board problems. Probably because it was installed correctly. Ryan says, I hate we missed the British guy on the show. Hopefully he did. So I'm glad you brought that up, Ryan. So he sent me a message after, said he felt horrible about it. And we may try to work that out again. I'm not sure how we're going to do that, because it is a horrible time for him. If you think about the time difference between us and Europe, I mean, what time is it there now? If it's now almost 9:30 on the East Coast. I'm in Texas right now, so it's 8:30 here. That means it's, if he's 5 hours, so that's 9:30, 10:30, 11:30, 12:30, 1:30, 2:30. So that means he would have had to wake up at 1:30 to do our show, and then would not have gotten done with our show. So Ryan says it's 6 hours. So whether it's 5 or 6, that is tough. I mean, I'll be honest with you. If the tables were turned and he invited me on his show and said that I had to be up at 1:30 in the morning, I'm a night out anyway. So honestly, that might not have been a big deal for me, because I would have just stayed up. But he still runs a company. He still has to wake up early in the morning and take care of folks. And it's not just him and his family. He's responsible for other employees and their families. That's something that is not talked about enough for small business owners that employ others. For me, that was a lot of weight that I carried. It wasn't just my family, and I love my family dearly, and they came first. Don't get me wrong. But once I hired that very first employee, and then that first employee was single, and his kids were grown. But my second employee, he was married, he had kids, and that was tough for me. I mean, if I'm just being honest, I didn't see him as just another number. I saw him as, somebody that I was now responsible for. It was my job to go freaking sell some work. So he has work to do so he can take care of his family all of a sudden. And it changed everything. It changed, how I approached a lot of situations. So anyway, back to Jacob. Ryan says he's very knowledgeable and passionate. I wish more people saw your channel's great content. If you're talking about Jacob, he is. In fact, if y'all haven't checked him out, his channel's called The Outspoken Engineer. If you go to his YouTube channel, he's got some cool stuff. I mean, obviously his stuff, he's going to be talking a lot more of the stuff that affects the folks in his country. But there is some overlap, and he's gotten that name, The Outspoken Engineer. The funny thing over there, though, I will say, is the fact that his channel is called The Outspoken Engineer. Engineer is a totally different thing in our country, right? So here he would be the outspoken technician, because he's, an HVAC technician, not an engineer as far as our terms go. Sam says, I'm now looking at two of my slide rules. The one I will use tonight is a post Versalog 1460. It belonged to my father. He and Columbus Wilcox were the first black co-op engineering. Wow. That's awesome, man. Shoot me an email, Sam. I'd love to hear more about your dad. Is he still living? If he is, maybe we can figure something out and maybe have him on our show. I don't know. He may not even be interested, but, I love hearing cool stories like that, especially people that are pioneering things like that. Probably wasn't always the funnest, right? Laying the foundation and such that some of these folks had to do. Anyway, we are going to be wrapping up shortly. I do want to say, if you do happen to catch this show, if you are, if you can't join us every week, if you can't, Tuesday night might be tough. You can always obviously watch the video after the fact on the HVAC Guide live show YouTube channel. We usually post that video and keep it there. But the other thing, platforms. And so if you haven't heard us on audio, we basically take the videos. Some of them, it just doesn't make sense, right? If it's a lot of pictures and things like that. But, if we've got a guest or some other reason and we, can make a good show from a audio standpoint, then we post them to all the major podcast platforms. If you haven't checked this out, give us a like, a follow, maybe even a 5-star review. I wouldn't be mad at that on all those major platforms. Sam, I will put my email in the this goes to my team. It's actually not my email, but my team will take care of all this. So I just sent that email. It's in the chat. Sam says, engineering students at Boeing. This was in 1954. He purchased his slide rule in 1953. Wow. The slide rules have been around a minute, haven't they? That's a really cool story. If we can figure it out, that would be kind of cool to have him on our show. Maybe hear some some cool stories from that standpoint. That said, I do appreciate you guys. If you don't miss any other show, make sure you're here next week. Louise is a hoot. She's a smart lady. She is one of the top folks at UEI Tools, and she's also, I've learned a lot from her from the standpoint of combustion and combustion analysis and carbon monoxide. So next week's show should be very informative, if nothing else. I'm sure it'll be entertaining as well, because she's just a fun lady. I've got to confirm with her, because we made that appointment a while back. So hopefully she's still good and she'll be here next week. As always, we will be back next Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern. That's 5:30 p.m. Pacific, depending on where you are in the country. Figure out what time that is, and we will be here live. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate your support. We will see you then. Make it a great week. Take care.